she is illegally practicing medicine without a license in the state of Ohio. Now, that's the kind of case that I get all the time. And my record at the moment is I've got more than 3,000 wins, and we've lost 3 cases. And I lost all of those in 1993 for a period of time while I was learning how to do this mediation. The people gave up. All 3 of them said, no, I'm done. That's it. I'm out of here. I'm closing the business and kissing them goodbye. And I understand that because they scare the hell out of you. But the modern definition for counseling, cure, diagnose, prescribe, and treat have changed a great deal in the last 20 years. And this is causing a problem for illegally licensed professionals. Believe it or not, there are some boards out there that are actually diploma mill license boards. And they're licensing people, and people think it's a valid license because it's a federal government license. Well, it's not. It's not any kind of license at all. It's a piece of paper that has no meaning. And that's what's happening with certified people that are getting certified by a diploma mill. Now, interestingly enough, most license boards actually consider BCIA very valid for anybody that has a valid license in their state. But if they are not licensed in their state in one of the health fields, and they don't consider counseling as one of the health fields, they're talking about chiropractic, dental, osteopathy, medicine, nurse practitioner. They don't even consider in some states a nurse practitioner, a registered nurse, to have a valid certification. Registration is a certification. It's not a license unless the state decides to make it a license. Non-certified practitioners are the ones that are in biggest trouble, and quite frankly, the only way to help them, if you run across one in your state, is just tell them, oh, look, close your business, go get a coaching workshop and learn how to coach so that you stop counseling, you stop advising, all the other stuff. Get certified by an accredited certification board, and then open your business up again. And this may take you 3 to 10 months. I say 10 because people stall for a month, and it takes them 9 months to get it done. Diploma mill ministers are another problem area. You just send in your $25 or your donation, and you're a minister without any kind of training behind you in being a minister. And that just doesn't fly with any state license board that I know. The common solutions, very simply, become legally licensed in your profession, in your state or province, period. If there's a license in your profession, get it. Practice within the professional scope of practice of your license. And we'll talk about that a lot today because this is where licensed practitioners are getting into trouble. The board is saying you're practicing outside the scope of practice for your license, and therefore we're giving you a cease and desist, close that down. And you close that part of it down, and then you figure out how to become legal. If that's not an option, to become legally certified, become legally licensed, then by law in all 50 states, and this is a Federal Trade Commission law, by the way, you have to be certified in your profession. Now, I tell people the best and easiest way to do that is to become a coach. Coach, educate your clients, and empower your clients to make their own decisions so that you don't diagnose anything and you don't prescribe anything. So let's look at these counseling. The first one, counseling has been redefined so that if you advise anybody to do something or to take something or to be something, you are counseling them. If you consult with anybody about anything, and salespeople that are multi-level marketers that are called consultants are getting into trouble with this one all over the board because they're counseling. and they don't have a legal license to be consulting. They don't have a legal license to be counseling, therefore they can't consult. If I give you my opinion, believe it or not, if it's anything about a medical thing, the medical board will consider that as a counseling. If I give you my opinion about a psychology issue or a brain issue or a behavioral issue, the psychology boards do the same thing. And I don't blame them because there's a lot of people out there that are consulting and giving out opinions, making recommendations and suggestions that are absolutely ridiculous for whatever the person has, because they're making that based on no knowledge of what the heck is really wrong with the brain, with the organs in the body, with anything. They're making a guess, and that's a diagnosis. Problem areas are licensed counselors that get stung because they're counseling with their clients, but they're giving advice about a medical condition, or they're giving advice about a psychology condition, or they're recommending, suggesting, giving an opinion. Having a real big problem right now defining their role. And basically, the way you read most of these, they're specific. If I'm a marriage and family counselor, that's what I am, and that's all I can talk about. And you have to go inside the scope of practice for that particular person to define exactly what they're supposed to do and what they can do legally. And most of them are surprised when they find out, well, they can't do something they've been doing for years. Non-certified, non-licensed professionals are always a big problem because they don't know what they're doing, bottom line. They can tell you they do, but they don't really know what they're doing. Practicing outside your professional scope of practice is a problem for those people that are licensed other than counselors. Well, the counselors are practicing outside their professional scope of practice, and that's their problem. Diploma mill members, ministers, and diploma mill coaches there's a plethora of them around the country. You just have to ask them, where did you get your schooling? What school did you go to? You can go to a company online called credibilityfirst.com and just check them out. And if they're listed, fine, then you know they're credible. If they're not listed, you can send in a little request and say, what about this company or this school or this academy? And they'll send you back and tell you exactly what. The most common result I get is suspected diploma mill. Well, great. The person's got a diploma that has no merit whatsoever, and they've got certification that has no merit whatsoever, and they're in trouble. Common solution, you've just read these. The common solutions are the same for everybody. Become legally licensed in your state or province, practice within your professional scope of practice. If that's not an option, become properly certified, and that means by an accredited certification board. There are a lot of them out there. At last count, I counted over 120 legitimate accredited certification boards in the health, wellness, nutrition, and therapies field. I counted over 400 illegal certification boards in the same fields. So 20% of them are legal. When I went into the education end and started checking out, I hired 2 people to do this for me because it got to be out of hand. There were over 800 schools, academies, colleges, institutes set up in this field for nutrition, health, wellness, and therapies. Out of that 800, those 800 schools, only 140 of them were properly accredited. Now, that tells me there's a lot of people out there that are falling into this area of diploma mill coach, diploma mill specialist, diploma mill neurotherapist, and they need to just get their act together. And the best and easiest way for them to do that is learn how to coach. And they can take coaching workshops fairly economically from local colleges. You know, there's a lot of people that are teaching at community colleges, junior colleges, and colleges. Right here in Asheville, they run a coaching course every semester. And then practice within your professional scope of practice. That's really very necessary. Cure. You're going to love this. The FDA has a patent on the word cure. Now, that should be illegal. It should be absolutely illegal. Nobody should be able to patent a word that has been in common use for literally hundreds, maybe thousands of years. The American Medical Association, of course, has stood behind the FDA because they're really owned and operated by the same group called the Codex Alimentarius Commission. If you don't know anything about the Codex Alimentarius Commission, it's an education, because that's the largest lobbying agency in the world. They have over 1,000 paid lobbyists that are spread around nonprofit organizations all over the country, where they tell people how to run their organization, and they take control. And how do they do that? They buy everybody they can. They do the same thing with legislatures. They set up congressmen and senators with a contract that if they are friendly to what we're talking about here, when you retire, you'll be getting a salary of $250,000 a year to speak at any convention, conference, do special presentations, and we'll pay all the costs for you to go there. Yeah, well, okay, 250 grand a year? Well, fine. Yeah, what can I do to help you? They do the same thing with attorneys and judges that are in a critical situation. It's Codex Alimentarius Commission is a very dangerous organization, and I'm running against them a lot because by law in the United States of America, a medical doctor must prescribe a drug if there is a drug for the condition they just got through diagnosing. Now, alternative, holistic, and natural medical doctors are not diagnosing a medical disease, disorder, or condition. They're looking at that and they're saying, my God, this is not attention deficit disorder. Why should I put a kid on drugs for that? So they just say that he's having some problems accessing certain parts of his memory, and what he needs is a neurotherapist. And good. That works, and you don't have the side effects of the prescription drugs. Now, most people don't understand what some of those side effects are, and they say, well, this could happen. Well, that means that in the research project, it did happen. And it didn't happen 51% of the time. It was only 49% of the time, or less. But it happened. If it happened 51% of the time, then they have to label that as a side effect. Cure is a word that I'm telling everybody to avoid. Become a coach. Help people, give them therapies, help them decide what they want to do, and help them heal themselves if they want to. But notice that that's a problem area. Heal and healing, other than spiritual healing, is an area that is defined by license boards and the FDA as meaning cure. Herbal and naturopathic remedies are labeled as prescription drugs, even though they're not really drugs. Homeopathic and other remedies, they're labeling them as a prescription drug, even though it's not a drug. So they're taking the word drug and saying remedies are drugs. They're not even close. The remedies were made by God, drugs were made by man, drugs are toxic, most remedies are not. So I have a real problem with this FDA definition and patent. Now, what are they doing about enforcing it? They're enforcing it very strongly for people that are not licensed. They're going after certified people in some areas, not all areas, but in some areas. Why are they doing that? Every license board that I have ever heard of in the United States and Canada, both, has a financial problem. And they have a financial problem because government is not giving them as much free money as they were used to getting. They're being cut back. They have to raise their own money through licenses and fines. Whoa, wait a minute. Here's somebody out there practicing my profession. We need $100,000 this month. Let's go get that person and let's go get 10 more. And away they come. And it's getting ridiculous. I was a one-man operation. I became a four-man operation. 3 of my people are now competitors of mine because I helped them set up their own business because I couldn't handle the volume that I was getting. I can't handle the volume I'm getting today. I'm averaging 20 to 25 cases a week. That's taking part of my load. I can't handle that much kind of volume. There are 27 people now doing mediation with license boards, mostly. Belong to an organization that's called the American Association of License Board Mediators. And every one of them is making a very good living, and they're doing a lot of pro bono work. I mean, what do you do with a single mom with 3 kids that just got a cease and desist order and she got no business and she got no income? You help her and you do it. And I know you guys and gals do that all the time. That's just the way we are if we're in the helping professions. We help other people. Diagnosis has been redefined. Used to be a diagnosis was a diagnosis and the doctor said, this is my diagnosis. Today, they say the same thing, only today they mean, well, I analyzed that this is probably what you got. I did an assessment, and I think this is what you got. But I'm going to tell you, my diagnosis is blank. I could estimate or guess or even judge that you have this condition or this disease or this disorder, and that's all I need to make my diagnosis. I can evaluate and I can examine. Well, guess what? Evaluation is something that almost every health and wellness practitioner does or did. Examine their clients is something they almost universally did. Let me see your tongue. Do you mind if I look in your ear? Can I feel your pulse? Well, that's an examination. And the medical and psychology boards are saying, look, the psychology boards are doing the non-medical. Well, I don't want to separate it that way because that's not a clear-cut separation. They're looking more at the kinds of issues that psychologists will work with. The medical boards are looking at anything. And they just analyze, assay, assess, estimate, guess, judge, evaluate, examine, and that is their diagnosis, and that is the diagnosis. And if you do any of these things, if you're examining or evaluating or analyzing anything like blood, like urine, like hair, like lymph, you're analyzing, you are diagnosing. Both the medical and psychology boards can come after you, regardless of whatever it is you're doing, unless you've got a license in their profession. The problem areas are the same as you would expect. Here's a a psychologist that didn't realize that the scope of practice did not include this particular thing. And that particular thing was helping their clients with nutrition in order to solve part of their problem. I mean, one of the ways to help people with attention deficit disorder is go back to the Feingold diet and make a variation of it, basically get them off all sugars so that they are not hyper anymore, and get them off all artificial sweeteners, colorings, taste enhancers of any kind, flavorings of any kind. They're all artificial chemicals with serious side effects. And the people with an attention deficit problem have a problem that gets exacerbated because of their diet. But some psychology boards are saying you cannot practice nutrition because the dietitians in this state are the only people that can practice nutrition. They're the licensed nutritionists. Diploma Mill Certification
John?
Board. Yes, sir.
Well, I wanted to check because did you want to take questions during the course of your presentation or wait towards the end?
I wanted to just go through the rest of these real quickly because they're very diagnosed was the key. Now we have two more,
Gotcha.
and then I want to open it up and take questions.
Very good. Okay, perfect. I'll wait then. Thank you.
Prescribe has been redefined, believe it or not. These are prescriptions today. According to the FDA, and every drug that comes out, they say these are the prescriptions. Advise, approve, promote a drug. If it's not a drug, it's a prescription that is not valid. It is an improper and illegal prescription. The same way if you endorse something, recommend or suggest something that is not a drug, the medical board has a right to come after you. Now that's ridiculous. Are they doing that? No, they're really not. They are sending letters to some people that are saying, we're warning you that if you don't start referring these people to a medical doctor, we will take legal action. Those kinds of letters are getting to be scarcer and scarcer. Now it's telephone call or an email, but mostly telephone calls. And they try to scare the living daylights out of the people, and they do a pretty good job. Common solutions are still the same. Prescribe is a problem word. Treat is another problem word. Treat has been redefined. Now, nobody ever thought that a treatment was an attempt to cure anything, or an attempt to heal, or an attempt to remedy anything. Most treatments are designed to help people get rid of their stress and their pain. That's not attempting to cure anything. But that's the way they're refined. And they're redefined by medical boards, psychology boards. They're absolutely redefined by several other boards. But the point is, if you're a professional, check and see if you can actually do treatments. And if it's within your scope of practice, then go for it. If it's not, then kind of find another way. The diploma mills are still the problem. Now, that's what I wanted to share with you because these 5 words are the basis for at least 80% of all the problems that the license board mediators are handling. Now we're talking about 27 people, well 24 that are active, 3 are kind of semi-retired. But 24 people are handling 20 to 30 of these people a week. And most of them are having a problem with one of these 5 key words. Diagnosis is probably the leader. Prescribe is probably second. Now cure is the leader. More people are being physical therapists that are not licensed, but they're doing physical therapy. Massage therapists that are licensed, but they're not licensed in a healthcare field, and they're attempting to heal, cure, or remedy somebody because they're giving them a treatment. And they're giving a treatment by sprinkling some oils on their spine and rubbing it in, and that's a treatment. And what they're attempting to cure, heal, or remedy, we don't know. But the board says you can't do that, cease and desist doing that immediately. So that's where we're at. And the last thing I want to share with you is this. If you're licensed by your state or your province, one of the things that you are required by law to do is to report anybody you know that is doing any one of these 5 things to your board, if they're encroaching into your board. So I've got a non-licensed, non-certified neurotherapist out there that is attempting to cure attention deficit disorder. By law, if you don't report that to the board and you know about it, they can come after you because it's one of the requirements you have, one of the obligations you have as a licensed professional is to inform your board of anybody that is practicing your profession illegally. Now that stinks because 2 people are going to get hurt. If you don't do it, you get hurt. If you do it, the other person gets hurt. So what do I tell people that are licensed and they're calling me about somebody like that? I say, look, be honest with them. Just tell them, if you don't get certified by an accredited certification board to do what you're doing, I have to report you to my board for practicing psychology, for practicing counseling, for practicing medicine, for practicing chiropractic without a license. Pure and simple. And just lay it out for them. Now I'll give you 90 days to get that problem corrected. You're going to have to take a coaching workshop. Fine. I can send you some places to go. But if you don't want to do it, and you refuse, and you just tell me to go to hell, I am going to the board because I have to. And with that last note of encouragement, I'm going to open this up to any kinds of questions you have, Rob.
Well, yeah, one of my questions certainly was, it sounds like language and the wording that is used for all of us makes a big difference. Yes. Whether you're actually in the medical field where you might have the most leeway to do all of this, if you actually are an MD, and some of us today attending may be MDs. And then you have psychologists, but then you have to be careful about whether you're using a word that sounds more medical than psychology-based. And then what sort of really got my attention and I wanted to have you talk about a little bit was you were talking about the whole thing about assessing. Many of us in the mental health field, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm licensed by my state.
Right.
You know, I'm allowed to treat mental health disorders. I guess I'm allowed to diagnose those per se. And I always make sure when I'm doing neurofeedback that I just use mental health type diagnoses and not something that's, you know, would be out of my scope for sure, despite the person's background. They may be coming here because they have another disorder, but anxiety may be attached as the diagnosis, and if we get the other disorder working better, like a migraine headache, then great for you. But I don't list it as the treatment disorder or diagnosis. But we all do assessments, and that sounds like, you know, that can be pretty dicey too. I was wondering your thoughts about that.
It is kind of dicey, but here's what I tell licensed counselors. Like I said earlier, they're the ones that seem to be on the chopping block more than any other licensed profession. What you do is find the emotional issue underneath whatever's going on for them. If you can't find an emotional issue related to anger or anxiety or fear or to depression or sorrow, then you've got you have a perfect diagnosis of stress. They're in trouble and they got stressed from something. And whatever they got is causing them so much stress that it's more dangerous for them right now than whatever they got. So we're going to work on stress management, and we're going to help them get rid of their stress related to the problems that they're telling me about. Now, I'm not assessing anything. I did, but I'm not telling anybody that I did. I mean, it's in my head. It's not on paper. It's not any place. It's right in my head. And on my chart, I just write in there, stress probably due to blank. Or client says they have blank, and the stress of that is causing them more stress. Become a stress management specialist in your mind. Think in terms of, I'm going to help these people get rid of their stress and their pain. Those are the two key areas that you can get into. Yes, there are drugs for stress. Don't ever let anybody take them. They are absolutely like 95% harm, 5% health. Yes, there are drugs for any kind of an emotional issue you want to bring up. No, you don't want to go there either. You want to wean them off. You want to help them, empower them to get to the point where they decide, I need to wean myself off of this. And they do. They wean themselves off of that and actually become healthier with your work, with your help, than the drugs would ever give them, because the drug is just going after the symptoms with toxic chemicals. They're going after the brain with toxic chemicals. They're going after the adrenals with toxic chemicals that end up in the liver. Well, great. Their health is getting compromised, their immune system is getting destroyed because of the drug, and what you do would help them more. So help them wean themselves off of these drugs and get to the point where you can work with stress and pain. And yeah, there's pain medications out there. Don't take them. The pain salves that you can buy over the counter are probably better than the medications that you take internally. But when I have pain people, I teach them self-hypnosis. I started a clinic when I was at Lexicor, and I still have clients from that period of time. I turned the clinic over to the 3 women that worked for me when I left in '98. But I still have some clients that won't work with the women for some strange reason, and they want to keep contacting me. So, okay. But I get them off meds as fast as I can. And I just tell them, look, you have to decide if the harmful side effects of the drug you're taking are worth the risk for the benefit that you're gaining. Well, they're talking to me because they're not getting much benefit from that drug, or they wouldn't be talking to me.
Right. Along those same lines, and then I'm sure there's other questions, one of the things that we've talked about here, and you see bantered around a little bit on some of our listservs, here in the neurofeedback world, is the referring to the folks that we work with as either patients or clients. Patients oftentimes meaning something you're doing to somebody, client meaning more so, I think, someone who you're interactively working with to help resolve a problem. And then the word treatment versus training. Your thoughts on that for us?
Okay. I don't talk about treatment. I don't talk about training because training is a form of attempting to cure. What I talk about and what I tell my clients to talk about is, instead of talking about training them or treating them, talk to them about empowering them to make their own decisions. Now, I have never talked to a client in my life that ever said, oh, I don't want to ever make my own decisions. most of my clients really jump at the idea that, you mean I can heal myself? And my answer is, everything in the Bible tells me that you can. Everything in every spiritual book I've ever read tells me that you can. I find that when I was in neurotherapy, people made a better connection with the divine, regardless of whatever religion they were working with, because they get into a very peaceful, quiet, calm, relaxed state, and they become receptive, and they begin to touch into that divine energy, and it's very beneficial for them. And neurotherapy itself may not heal anything. All it does maybe is help people get rid of all their stress and make them receptive to the divine so they heal themselves. Now that's the spiritual approach. And I use that with anybody that has a spiritual path that they're following. And it doesn't matter what name they use for God. It doesn't matter how they worship God. It doesn't matter if they refuse to use the word God or church or whatever. That's immaterial. What's material is they have a spiritual path, and that means that they're trying to travel a spiritual way. And people they're going to attract are people that are also traveling a spiritual path. Spiritual people tend to attract spiritual people. Non-spiritual people tend to attract non-spiritual people. It's just who we are, and we attract people that kind of fit into our paradigm. So do I talk about treatment? No, I don't. I talk about, let's find a way for you to help yourself.
So self-regulation would be a good phrase.
Oh, self-regulation is a great phrase. When you're talking to a license board, you say, hey, all I teach is self-regulation. That really takes the burn out of everything they've got. I mean, they're coming at you with one hammer after another, and you just disarmed their hammers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the person is regulating themselves, you're not diagnosing, you're not prescribing, you're not counseling. You're helping, you're empowering your clients. And I love that phrase. And that's a phrase that mediators use a lot. We empower our clients to make their own decisions. My client is empowering people, their clients, to make their own decisions. Now, if their clients make their own decisions, how can they be diagnosing? What are you missing here? You know, show me how that's a prescription. They can't. Well, so-and-so said they were prescribing. I said, well, exactly what did they say that they prescribed, and how did they prescribe it? I mean, did they prescribe what? What was it? They empowered their client to make their own decision, and their client made a decision. That's not a prescription. And that's where I think where neurotherapists need to go, is they need to go into the area of neurotherapy coaching. And coaching is really very simple. There are a couple of websites that I send people to and say, take a look. I thought I had them on here, but I don't. One is called freecoachtools.com. That's one place I send just about every client that I have immediately. Credibility First is listed here. I think you'll find that that's a good place to get information about whether a school, academy, institute is accredited, how they rank in the credibility field. Same thing with a certification board, same thing with an association. BCIA, for example, is ranked very, very high as an association for licensed professionals only. For non-licensed professionals, they're ranked very low. Now, I find that very interesting. I get some BCIA clients every once in a while, and most of them are licensed. The few that are not licensed, I get them certified real quickly. by somebody else that is an accredited board. And that's not that hard. They can do it in about 30 days by taking a coaching workshop. One of these 30-day things is at the end of it you take a test, and if you pass it, you are satisfy the requirements. But in that 30 days, you're going to spend about 5 hours a day coaching. The Federation of Spiritual Healer Licensing Boards, I think, is a good place for people that are going on a spiritual path. The fourth thing that I send my people to is I tell them, look, you may want to get out of the public world and become a private club, private association, where you and your clients, who will be members of your association, you and your members can talk about anything. This is guaranteed under the Constitution and all of the civil rights legislation since then. So I send people to check it out. And there are places where people that belong to BCIA can go and join an association to do that for like less than $300. I recommend those kinds of things to my people, but freecoachingtools.com is a good place to find out how you can empower other people to make their own decisions. And you do it with applied kinesiology, yes, but it's different because it's applied kinesiology that they keep testing and testing until they can prove to themselves that they're accurate at least 80% of the time. Now, most people will test out on a final examination between 95 and 100% accurate on a 10-step test, where they actually are testing themselves to get an answer for this question. And some people will score, well, about 20% of the people score 100%. So I love coach tools, and I use them with people all the time. I use them when I go shopping. I use what is called the lean technique. If I lean forward, this is going to be good for me. If I lean backward, put it back on the shelf. I do that with fruits and vegetables, and I pick out. People wonder, why aren't you smelling it? Why aren't you squeezing it? I said, oh, I just want to tune into it and see what it, if it's going to be good for me. And I don't get any bad fruit, or I don't get any bad veggies. But that's a common theme from people that actually study these free coach tools and learn how to use them. Did that answer the question? Hello?
Yes, it did. Thank you. Yep, it did.
I'm
I had myself unmuted. It takes a minute when we're on mute. It takes us a minute to sort of get back into the game when we unclick ourselves from mute. So yes, that was good. Other questions, folks?
This is Martin. I have a question. I mean, this is a very scary tendency for, if we listen to your words, I'm really getting scared. I'm a human biologist, completely outside any licensing possibilities here, and I'm doing neurofeedback. So my question is, from your point of view, from your expertise, where do you see this tendency to go in the next couple of years?
Well, there's already a move in several states to try to license neural therapists. And they say they'll grandfather them in. What they mean is we're going to grandfather those in that are licensed in some other profession. They don't tell you that until after the legislation passes, and then they find out, you find out, oh, well, I don't qualify as a grandfather because I wasn't licensed. Sometimes the state will have a rule that says if you're certified by an accredited certification board, you can be grandfathered in. The truth of the matter is that over the long run, I believe the best way for neurotherapy to move is toward licensing themselves and setting up a program that here's what a neurotherapy license scope of practice should look like. And when they say that they're going to have a state license in a particular state, you go in there with your proposal and say, this will work. I don't like the BCIA proposals, by the way, because they're pretty much formulated by what I call the Codex Alimentarius Commission. I think they should be a little less, a little less punitive. I think they should be opening up and letting people practice neurotherapy that works. And that's why I say I think the best way to go is, if you don't have a license right now, get certified by a board. And Credibility First has a whole list of boards that are fully accredited, and some of them will take neurotherapists. I know one for sure that does. It's called the Natural Therapies Certification Board, and they probably certify about as many neurotherapists as BCIA, but they really don't certify licensed people. The licensed people, they actually will refer them to BCIA and say, look, this organization is filled with licensed people. You'll be in a group pretty much, of your peers. Here, you're going to be certified as a neurotherapist or a neurotherapy coach, and you get to make the choice. I'm a neurotherapy coach, and I keep my certification current because I still do a little bit of neurotherapy, and I don't want to be caught practicing without valid certification. See, when we moved or gave the Neurotherapy Certification Board to BCIA, I was automatically certified as a neurotherapist under BCIA, but I'm not licensed by anybody. In fact, in the state of Colorado, I was challenged by the medical board for practicing medicine without a license because I was a homeopath that practiced the homeopathy and naturopathy. And at that period in my life, I had a young attorney, and he and I were both scared to death after the board told us everything we were doing illegal. And my attorney said, I think you better sign that form. So I signed it, and it said I would not practice medicine, naturopathy, or homeopathy in the state of Colorado for the remainder of my life. So I can't. And that's scary. Yeah, it is scary. The boards are out of control. Government is out of control, and you have to protect yourself. The first step is get certified by an accredited certification board. If you're licensed, keep that license. Don't ever let it go. Hang on to that sucker for dear life, because that's your ticket to keep paying the bills for the family. That's my answer.
I got it, and I'm still scared. Thank you very much. Question,
well,
the Natural Therapies Certification Board, is that international or is it just the U.S.?
Actually, they are international. They have a board in Europe. It's called NTCB EU.
NTCB EU.
The rest of the boards are run by the Natural Therapy Certification Board here in America, but they have one for South America and one for Australia. But they actually run it here in America.
Would you happen to know whether it's accredited, whether it's valid in Canada as well?
Oh yeah, it's valid
in
all.
Okay.
Yeah, in every province.
Okay.
And most provinces will welcome. I mean, if they investigate you and you're certified by NTCV, they'll just thank you and go on their way.
Okay, that's at least an outlook here.
Yeah, I've I've had some problems in Quebec, but the reason very simply was they wanted the certification board to start issuing their certification in French, and they didn't, and the board kind of got angry, but they didn't do anything, and they let my client go. My client was bilingual, French and English, and they let her be. She had a good practice, single mom with 3 kids, and she was doing very well. And this really, really hurt her because she didn't have any other way to support the family, and no husband to be found any place because nobody paying child support. And she was looking at, I go on welfare and I become a ward of the state, or I get this problem solved. So we solved the problem.
I have a question, if this is Andrea, if questions are allowed.
Certainly. Come on in.
Hi. My understanding is that certification doesn't necessarily get you that much. It's licensure that's important. What is so different about the NTCB board why is that certification so much better? I'm sorry if I'm repeating what you covered, but I'm not clear on that.
Okay. If you go to credibilityfirst.com, you'll see that the Natural Therapy Certification Board is an accredited certification board that is ranked very high by Credibility First. Now, Credibility First is one of the places that license board investigators go. That site is visited by more license boards than by mediators, and they keep track. They can tell you how many license boards have checked their site this month to date, and they give you statistics year to date. And they keep a very good track on who's visiting. And license boards go there, and they know who's ranked well, and they know who's credited and who isn't, and they know who the diploma mills are. And you can't fool them. I tried. I had one guy that was certified by the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. And I tried to explain how much this person knew, how hard they worked to get this certification. And when I was all done, the investigator said, yeah, well, they were certified by one of the worst diploma mills. And at that point, I was speechless. And later, I worked out with the investigator that if my client became a coach and got certified by an accredited certification board and ceased and desist to doing any diagnosis of any kind, would that be acceptable? And they accepted it. And so we settled that case, and we were done. She didn't want to diagnose anything anyway. But the point is, that's only one of the boards that is listed there. It happens to be the one that I'm certified by, so it's easy for me to remember that. It's also the board that I started after a problem arose in BCIA with some people that were not licensed, and they were not passing the test that BCIA had. It was an evoked potentials test at the time. So I started a neural therapy board to give a neural therapy test very similar to the one that I gave to BCIA for people that couldn't qualify for BCIA. But so I've got a personal bias in that direction. So pick the board that you like, but find an accredited board that works for you. It doesn't make any difference who it is as long as they're accredited. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And
Thank you. Well, John, we're going to need to probably wrap this up because we are at the hour, and many of us have patience and all that.
well, if anybody wants to stick around, they can.
Well, unfortunately, I have to use this platform to mentor somebody, so I have to.
Okay. Let
stop
me
it,
just
but we
give
can
my
start
email.
Yeah, please do.
Email address, and I'll be happy to chat with anybody by email or telephone. I'm donating this time to help you stay out of trouble. I don't want you to get up angry and anxious about it because nothing has happened to you yet. So be proactive, protect yourself before it happens, and then it won't happen. That's my message is, protect yourself now. If you can get licensed, get licensed. If you can't, then get certified by an accredited certification board. My email address is John, John, at N like Nancy, T like Tom, C like Charlie, R like Roger, S like Susan.com. That's NTCRS.com, and it stands for Natural Therapies Conflict Resolution Services. That's my business. And you can reach me at that email address anytime. I'll donate as much time as necessary to help you protect yourself. Okay?
Thank you so much, John. If people are interested in your handout there and you're willing to give it to us, email it to me and I'll put it up on our listserv for folks to have.
Okay.
And we'll get you back here.
Well, glad to donate my time. And you're going to donate some money to a charity, right?
If you don't want the honorary, we give it to the ISNR Foundation.
Oh, that'd be fine too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Richard, and thank you, everybody. We'll see you here Friday.
Yep. Thanks very much, John. Take care.
Thanks, John. Bye-bye.